This is not a test. This is reality.
It's the weekend, and we are going beyond the strange with host Dave Cruz on Spaced Out Saturday Nights.
Dave's the killer! Yeah! Dave's the killer! Dave's a mess.
When the clocks, they never stop, they barricade my face.
You can follow Dave on Twitter at StrangeDave70. Hit him up on Skype, Strange Days 2015. And you can follow Dave on our website, spacedoutradio.com.
Things are gray. I push until I break. I feel them start to scrape. The core of all I am is chiseling away. And every speck of life is gonna rot away in time. We turn to mud or turn to stone, it's a grand design. But there's a petrified heart and I'm lost inside. We all self-destruct, love is to deny. And that is life.
The probability is low, but the discoveries of the Kepler mission suggest that there are billions of habitable planets in our galaxy alone. And there are at least 100 billion galaxies in the visible universe. So it seems likely that there are others out there.
Now, get your tinfoil hats on tight as Spaced Out Saturday with Dave Cruz begins right now.
You're here to turn me inside out, and then turn me away. For all my life I choke on clouds of savior smoke, until my blackened soul was burning away. And every speck of life is gonna rot away in time. Return to mud, turn to stone, it's a grand design. A maze of petrified hearts and I'm lost inside. We all self-destruct and love is to deny.
Hola, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Saturday Nights. I am Dave Cruz, your host. Nice to be with everyone tonight. It's going to be an awesome evening. I cannot wait. Tonight, this day, Saturday, September 16th, Sunday, September 17th, if you're on the East Coast, we are live. We are here on the West Coast from the Napa Valley wine country, just outside the mystical Sonoma Mountains. Join us now, as we will be here every Saturday night. Let's welcome in everyone listening on our terrestrial stations, WQEE 99, Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. You can also listen to us live on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker.com, KTLK, TheFringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network. Like our music, then rock with us to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Also, you can check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give us a like on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. And on Instagram, you can follow me at StrangeDave70. You can also follow me on Dave Cruz on Facebook and StrangeDave70 at StrangeDave70 Twitter. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We are also on Radio Guide FM, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio. If you want to take part in the show, you got to do us a favor. You got to sign in to one of our chat rooms on our website at Spreaker.com or the UPRN chat room. And if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio and you will get your questions in there as well. If you head over to the website, just for $5 a month, you can become an SOR space traveler. And as of right now, you can go to the Spaced Out Radio store, pick up a t-shirt, poster, or an SOR sticker. We have the encounter online that deals with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. You can check out Dave Scott's latest blog, and if you have an experience and you can't explain it, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Tim Doyle from the UFO Seekers, and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV also has some great video viewing as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's guest, I've had him on my show Beyond the Strange. He's been on Clyde Lewis. He's been on Coast to Coast. He's been on many, many shows. I apologize. I'm getting a message from my producer here. Just bear with me a moment, please. All right. Excellent, everyone. Seems like we're having another gnome in there messing with the audio. Those gnomes like to do that. Not sure why, but they love me. Must be about the name Dave that attracts the gnomes. Anyways, we got that all figured out. Okay. Christopher P. Garetano is a passionate filmmaker. He was born in 1976 in New York, a graduate of the prestigious School of Visual Arts in New York City. Chris bursted onto the scene with his fascinating documentary Horror Business about the agony and the ecstasy of working in the indie horror world. A selection of several major film festivals, that is, the New York Horror Film Festival, Chicago Horror Film Festival, the London Filmmakers Convention, the Erie Horror Film. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Some people are just trying to get a hold of me. And Long Island Film Festival Horror Business takes viewers where the very few go. The stress, the pain, the frustration, as well as the joy and satisfaction of creating an indie horror film captured as Garetano follows 5 genre folk around the documents. Tonight we will be talking with Chris about the Montauk Chronicles and now History Channel's Dark Files. So everyone in the SOR chat room and out there in Spaced Out Radio, please help me welcome Christopher Garetano. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for being with us tonight, man. I know it's really late over there, and I really am super, super happy that you were able to join us. Like we were talking before the show, I'm just thrilled that you're okay, man, from the hurricane. I saw that video. You were actually being chased by this thing.
Yeah, look, I appreciate that, man, really, because we got lucky. I mean, some other folks here in Florida didn't, and other places. So I think we just got lucky. And the other thing is this: so the news swallowed up the ratings for the weekend, and they wanted to keep you watching. I really pay close attention to the news when they talk, broadcasters, whoever. They really want to keep your attention. And these people I had a room full of people that were kind of, hiding out from this hurricane, getting ready. And I said, just listen to what they're saying. And it was really just this circus act to constantly get us to watch because they make money, Their ratings go up, the sponsors are happy, and they make money. So I'm not saying there wasn't a hurricane, but because there was, and people died. But it wasn't, I think it wasn't as bad as what they constantly tried to tell us up to the last minute. They kept saying it was going to strengthen again. I live right on the water, right here in the Gulf, and they said we were going to have a 12-foot surge. There was absolutely no surge whatsoever, so nothing happened, and that's, it's interesting, because obviously I've been on the topic of mind control for a while, and these people really want you to think something bad's going to happen for their benefit.
Yeah, so. Definitely lots of propaganda, that's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I it's interesting that you said that because I believe I was watching the news about 2 days after Irma had gone through, and they showed people back in their bikinis on the beach again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was normal the next day. It was fine, Everything was back to normal. I mean, we did run out of gas, but it's fear. It's, I'm really familiar with a lot of, like Philip K. Dick and Stephen King and stuff like that. And they really, they touch on how paranoia affects people, and that's what I was afraid of the most, how people were going to behave because they were scared. So if anything ever really did happen, I think our worst, the thing you should fear the most is not the natural disaster, but how people are going to react after or during or before the disaster. Because we're going to tear each other apart, unfortunately. I mean, because all it takes is a few bad apples. So I think, we can change that by being cool, thinking of the best outcome, and don't let fear take you over, especially when it's definitely being sent your way, these little fear messages. So, I don't know, that's just my observation.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we talked a while ago on Beyond the Strange Radio, and that was fairly, I'd have to say probably about maybe 6 months after Montauk Chronicles came out. You've been really busy since then. We even talked about your Bigfoot project. At that time, you were just starting. That's how long ago it was, man.
Yeah, man, just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was like I said, you were just starting to do the Bigfoot, and now you're doing the Dark Files on the History Channel. I caught that, man. I caught the premiere, and man, I have to say, it's. I love the production, and it just deepens and goes further into the Montauk Chronicles. Was that your intention?
Yeah, I mean, I got contacted by the production company in December of 2014. That's how far back the Dark Files goes. So just as I was finishing Montauk, basically, and releasing it, they were interested in doing something with me. So it was in development throughout that time. And we started going into kind of heavy development in 2016, in January of 2016. And then we started shooting last September. So it was a lot of work and development. I'm one of the executive producers, so I had a lot to do with what was going on and the configuration of the whole thing, and a lot of input, which I'm grateful for, the whole experience. And, if it wasn't a true investigation and if the thing was scripted, I'd already be off the project, man. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm not interested in that stuff. I'm interested in something that's solid, and I don't understand why sometimes these things are overly designed and overly scripted, because it just doesn't make any sense. We leave that up for recreations and cinematic interpretation and stuff like that. That's fine. But when it comes down to the actual investigation, I don't think anything should be fabricated. And it's just pointless to do that because there's so many interesting things you can find along the way. You just need good editors. And luckily we had a bunch of them, but mainly this guy, Rick, was our main editor. But no, man, I'm happy with the show, and it rated really well. And so that means we're going to do more, as far as I know right now. We're going to know more next week, but because it's a huge investment on the part of the network, and this is what they want, but they had to test it. So they tested really well. A lot of people were watching.
Absolutely, I'm really happy to see that. And we got a full house, man, in the Spreaker chat. I mean, we've got so many people who love Montauk Chronicles, and you, of course. And they right off the top, the questions are coming in. One of the main questions is, what part of Florida are you from?
I'm not from Florida. I've been moving around so much in the past few years. Most of my life was spent in New York, and then I was over in Michigan for a couple of years. And I'll tell you, I can't tell you where I am, but I'll tell you where I'm on the Gulf Coast of Florida.
Okay.
Can't really tell you my location. I don't want to give it away. I'm one of those paranoid people, by the way.
That's all right, man. I know. I believe me. I know how you feel. Like I said, I'm broadcast from the Napa Valley wine country, and that's good enough for everyone. How's that?
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, let's talk a little bit about where you grew up. How about that?
Sure.
What was it like? What was it like for you?
I grew up with like a head full of ideas and stories and wonder and imagination, and I was outside a lot as a kid. I loved movies, and I loved comic books, and science fiction and horror literature as a kid, but I spent a lot of time outside too. And so I explored a lot of different places, and in the forests of the North Shore of Long Island, there's really just woods and beaches and harbor towns. So I experienced small town America up until I was about 16, 17, and then it was all in New York City after that. And I lived in New York City from 17 to 24, a completely different world, So that's kind of what shaped me, those two very different worlds. And my parents owned a video store when I was a kid, so I watched just about every movie. I was really into special effects makeup, so I made masks, and I was obsessed with like Rick Baker and Tom Savini and George Romero as a filmmaker, and later I got to meet him, which was great.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's the whole world I was into. But I really got into when I was a young kid, I was obsessed with In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. They had a lot of reruns on, and I have to this day. It just keeps growing. But I have all the books I started collecting on the paranormal, on cryptozoology, on hauntings, UFO abductions. It's enormous, and I've been collecting it since I was a little kid. And so this has always been my interest, and it's what led me to make Montauk Chronicles. But Montauk Chronicles, the story behind it, is so different than all of the things I was obsessed with when I was a kid, because of this central core evil to it all. I'm exhilarated when I'm researching the North American Sasquatch, and I'm exhilarated when I read about these kind of stories of abductions, and even just UFO sightings in general, and hauntings and things like that. I just love the stories. I love storytelling, and I love spooky stories. But Montauk's different, because it's a story of kidnapping and murder and torture and rape and just vile things happening within the core of this candy-coated paranormal story. So it's never been this fun thing for me. It's been quite detrimental. I've had I got really sick at one point, and it was about 6 years into the research, was after I got back from Stuart Swerdlow's home, actually, and something was wrong. Something was wrong. I was starting to get really paranoid, and I was losing myself. And I don't talk too much about this. I'm not using it as like my spiel to appeal, like to, hey man, I got so crazy making this thing. It's not. It hasn't been the thing in the front of my mind or on the tip of my tongue to tell people when I tell stories. But I'm telling you now that this thing is quite detrimental, and mainly because there are some really sinister characters behind it all. And it's very different than these other stories, these other strange, spooky stories that I loved as a kid. It's almost like the devil in disguise is one of these stories.
So a lot of the people that were in the film, well, I don't want to say a lot of them, but there are a couple of the key people in the film that you were interviewing are no longer with us. Am I right?
Well, Al Bielek passed away in 2011, and he claimed to have been the psychic director over at the Camp Hero experiment, somebody that was hired to work with the kids and develop their psychic abilities after they were put through these mind control programs and beaten and brutalized and in some cases murdered. They didn't go any further, obviously, after that. But so Al was that guy, and he claims to be, but he passed away in 2011. I was lucky enough to interview him at Fort Myers, Florida in 2006. And I think it's honestly the best interview I've ever seen with him was when I got to talk to him that afternoon, because it was kind of like him reflecting on his whole life. And I have the extended interview on the Blu-ray for Montauk Chronicles, but I have a few more things because I shot many hours and it was just only so much you can fit on a disc. So one day I'll put it out for free so people could see the whole thing unedited. But it's an interesting talk that I had with him. And Preston Nichols is alive to this moment. Stuart Swerdlow is alive, but I have my issues with that guy. And then I met people later on. I met people Duncan Cameron is also alive, by the way. I met people later that claim they were part of it. So a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork now, and in the last 2 years or so, 3 years or so, that claim they were victims, that they may have been there. And then I'd say the most important person in all of this won't speak publicly about it. And I spoke to this person after I was on Coast to Coast AM the first time. They contacted me. And I got contacted by a lot of people. I've been on a lot of the shows, like you've said, and every now and then people write, especially after the Dark Files just came on. I got a lot of emails I have to write back to people. But this person was different, very different. This person worked for a major chemical company in the 70s. And this story was so full of information, so full of dates and names and places. And they said they were hired basically in a kind of a secretarial type position to oversee a special operation that was at this chemical company. Their story checks out. They worked for the company. There's no reason why this person should lie to me. They wanted nothing out of us. Ultimately, they got cold feet and wouldn't even appear on camera with their voice and face obscured. But I have all of the information, and I'd like to pursue it, because a project like the Montauk Project needed to be funded. The old story that Al Bielek and Preston Nichols put out there was that it was funded with this kind of mythical Nazi gold train, which I never bought. I never bought that story. The one I do buy is this chemical company. And this person has so much information to give, and I'm going to try one more time to try and get them to talk, because I think it's so important. It's the last factor, I think, in all of this. If we can retrace the paper trail, we could find that there was actual funding and money being sent to Camp Hero at a time where nothing was supposed to be there.
Right. Yeah, there shouldn't have been anything there.
Sure. And it's weird. It's a weird situation. This person was appointed to a guy who was working for the government, a military man, very strange guy, always paranoid. This person oversaw papers that had names that corroborate Preston Nichols' story, names that he had mentioned in the past, names of people that were receiving experimental alloys, chemicals, and of course money. And it's and Brookhaven Labs was also on the paperwork. So, Nichols said that he was, and everyone else, were being transported from a lower level at Brookhaven National Labs, which is further west of Camp Hero, on an underground train that would lead from Brookhaven to the underground facility at Camp Hero. Now, the further you dig, the further you find this stuff. In the beginning, when I got started on this, it was all, all of the surface stuff, the alien stuff, the time travel stuff, the aliens, the monsters, all that stuff that's on the surface. When you dig deeper, you start to get closer and closer to the Mind Control Project and the Boys program. And you saw the Dark Files, so you see how close we got to some of that stuff. What you didn't see on the show, what didn't make it to the final cut, and I'm not exactly sure why, I'm going to ask, because it did make it to earlier cuts, was, and I don't have a problem talking about it, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers just showed up one day, and they were doing this big operation, drilling and testing soil and doing all this stuff. And this was on a rainy, cold winter day. Just happened to be the same exact day we wanted to explore the base, and they really put up a resistance to keep us out. So I want to make that clear that we would have gotten closer. We would have done more. There was a huge resistance to keep an eye on us and keep us away. And this is History Channel, so interesting how they kept such a resistance to keep us out of there.
It really does sound like they were keeping tabs on you, sort of.
Oh, they were. They were consistently checking on us.
With the chronicles themselves, the files, the Dark Files. I want to ask: is this going to be an ongoing series, more about the Montauk Chronicles, or are you going to get more into some of the other themes around the film, such as Mind Control and MK Ultra?
We've already submitted 10 episode possibilities, and none of which we revisit talk in. Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of good stuff coming up, and it looks like it's going to happen. Again, this is something that they wanted, History Channel wanted, but you're always taking a chance with a show. They could have put the Dark Files on. Everybody at the network loved it, but may not have taken well with the people. So it's always, they're investing a lot of time and money and everything in something like this, and they just have to look at it in a practical way. Luckily for us, and for the people that like the show, it did really well in the ratings. So I think I'll have good news this week, hopefully.
I think you will.
Thanks, man.
I do want to talk about something that was really interesting because, I want to talk about a few things, but one of the things on my mind, and a lot of people, noticed it. I hope they noticed it right off the bat, was when a certain series came out on Netflix last year. And
oh, strange.
Yes, exactly. Right off the bat, dude, I'm like, wait a second. They say they're in Indiana, I think, or something like that. I'm like, wait a second. This is really familiar. This is really, really familiar, especially when they started doing all the testing on one of the kids, and it's like, man, this really, really looks like Montauk for some reason. Did the producers of that series, did they ever approach you?
No, not particularly. I know they saw my stuff, for sure. My trailers were out in the world from like 2007, because I made two Montauk Chronicles movies, two completely different movies. So the early trailers were out there. And then Huffington Post did a big article on it. It went out to a lot of people. So that's when TV started to want to dabble in this idea, and I was getting contacted by NBC Universal, a whole bunch of different networks, just wanting to pick my brain and talk to me about the whole thing. And I, at the time, I was happy to help. And and Dark Files was in development before Stranger Things was even being photographed. So, but the original title to Stranger Things was Montauk. That was the name of it.
Yeah,
you could find those press releases online still, and it's inevitable. It's kind of an untouched territory. I was the only one that really did a movie on it, and it's expected to happen. I know for sure they saw my stuff. I saw a few kind of eerily similar visual things. I was the only person that ever visually interpreted the Montauk Project thing up until now. Now a lot of people are doing it, but it's cool, I mean, I think Stranger Things is, it's getting the idea out there. I don't think it's a bad show. And now it's their own, they took it in their own direction, but they were definitely doing the Montauk thing. I have a feeling maybe the reason why they changed the name after experiencing Montauk with a professional, much bigger crew, because I'm like a renegade filmmaker. I was hopping fences and going there at 2:00 in the morning by myself in the winter and stuff and shooting Montauk Chronicles, so I didn't have any resistance because they didn't even know I was there. But when you're traveling with a network, you have to get permits, and I have a feeling that the guys that were making Stranger Things probably put up with a lot of stuff from the town and just got frustrated and figured, okay, well, why don't we just change it? So,
I caught I caught some of the behind the scenes of the Dark Files, and it was showing how you were filming some of the scenes from the movie, from the Montauk Chronicles, and I noticed that you were using drone technology, and that was
sure,
and that was like one of the first times I ever seen that. And I thought to myself, when drones first came out, I'm like, man, this would be great for movies to get really great shots. And had you already known about that, or was that something that was just brand new on the scene?
That was the first time. Well, that was for Dark Files, and that was the first time I ever got to use one. Yeah, I mean, that was all on the set of the recreations, because I got hired to direct the recreations for Dark Files. So those were new. Those were only shot earlier this year. Montauk Chronicles was me, with much less equipment. But it was a cool experience to, work with a camera crews. I usually shoot everything myself, but they had Gerald, the director of photography, and his crew of good guys were there, and I collaborated with those guys and everybody else, and it was a cool experience. I mean, I prefer to shoot everything myself, of course, because I've been doing it my whole life, but I don't mind collaborating. I collaborated with so many people on the Dark Files. It was, for the most part, a really great experience.
It's I don't know if you remember, this came out probably a little bit after the movie, the Montauk Chronicles. Do you remember in the news there was something about a Montauk monster?
Yeah, I saw the Montauk monster thing, and I don't know if it ever really grabbed me like it did everybody else. Because usually, when people mention the Montauk monster, I'm thinking of that dead raccoon that keeps showing up in all the pictures.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
No,
they were asking in the chat room about the Montauk monster, and
do you mean Junior, the thing that Preston Nichols and Duncan Cameron and Al Bielek claim they created with the Montauk chair? Or do you mean the actual, that creature that washed up on the beach?
Well, I remember there's the creature that washed up on the beach, but then there was also, I thought about the creature that was released during all the experiments that they were doing as well.
Okay, so that, and Preston Nichols claims to this day that you'll run into it at some point. I mean, I had a few eerie moments at Camp Hero when I was by myself, especially late fall and the winter time, and I was there by myself a few times. And one afternoon, late afternoon. Sun's going down, and I'm laying on my belly, and I'm getting this really cool shot of the tower that's used in Montauk Chronicles. And the wind's blowing and howling near the tower, and it's cold. And I'm by myself. Remember, Montauk's like in the middle of nowhere, and in the wintertime, there's just nobody out there at all. And, I look to my right, and there's this family of deer, and they're all kind of staring at me, and they just took off. And I just felt like I have to get the hell out of here right now. I never felt that way. I never felt that way before, and it was just a really strange feeling. And I just kind of grabbed my gear and got out of there, and it was getting dark, and I just felt like I was panicked for some reason, and I don't get like that. And I was there so many times. I never saw anything. Just felt weird that day. So maybe it was the Montauk monster. You never know.
Yeah, that was very frightening indeed. And then again, referring to Stranger Things, that was the main part of the movie, is that this creature that comes from, what they call it, the upside down.
Yes.
It was a different dimension, and these were the experiments that were happening at Montauk.
So, according to Preston Nichols, and according to anybody that claims they were part of the project, they seem to be consistent, these type of experiments, and then entering these other dimensions and entering through interstellar travel or interdimensional travel through the Montauk chair. The gentleman James Bruce, that's his alias, he was both in the Montauk Chronicles and in the Dark Files. And, his story stays consistent, and he claims that he was one of those people that went into the real version of the Upside Down. And he has a variety of stories. I want to shoot more with him because I think he's more authentic than, let's say, some of the other people that are a little more well-composed and happy to be on camera. They're not in line, I think, with someone who was traumatized that bad ever. Because I've seen people, that are ex-drug addicts and have been through a lot of stuff in life, and they do have an edge to them that some of these guys that claim they've been through this don't have any edge at all. And I wonder, if they realize that. And so James has it, and a lot of the other people that have contacted me are damaged people, rightfully so, because of the things they claim they went through. So I kind of question Stuart Swirlow because he's always just so well composed and happy to talk about everything. And I always had an issue with that because I'm like, this is a guy who claims he was just beaten half to death and raped over and over again. And usually, if that happens to you, you're a little messed up, and that's okay because that's what you're supposed to be if those things happen to you for a long period of time, especially if you travel to other dimensions and did a lot of crazy things. So I keep my eye on how people behave, because I've been through some stuff and I have a bit of an edge to myself sometimes, and I can't deny that it's part of me. So I can only imagine someone who was dragged into one of these government programs and consistently were beaten and drugged, and they're going to be a little different, man. If it's real, they're going to be a little different for sure.
Yeah, I like that fact that you give them you give them room to give them the benefit of the doubt, but then again it's like, but you never know, that kind of attitude, if you will. I feel the same way. I give all my guests that kind of I don't know what you want to call it, but I just say, hey, look, if that happened, that happened. Who am I to say or judge that this didn't happen?
Yeah, no, same here. And I have been consistently fair for over a decade. It's just I've seen some things in recent years that made me question some of the people involved, and some of them, and they should be questioned because you got these guys out there telling this story. And I've met other people who do not, like James, who really, he doesn't want his identity revealed. He doesn't want people to know who he is. He doesn't want money for it. So, someone who's charging $5,000 a lecture in comparison to a guy who just needs to tell you his story out of fear, he needs someone to hear his stories. There's an authenticity to the latter, and not the former. The former is making money and profiting off of people, and in a lot of cases that I've noticed, taking huge advantage. So within the realm of truth in these extraordinary tales, there are liars, cheaters, and hucksters within that world. And so, trust me, I'm a believer. I've had a lot of weird experiences myself, but I'm also very cautious as to who I believe and who I trust, especially in this realm. And you have to be the same, Be open, be fair, especially if you're interviewing and investigating. Be fair.
Right.
Because it doesn't make any sense to just attack people. You want to get as much information as possible out of them. But I've spent 10 years, over 10 years on this. And so after a while, when the guy keeps telling you, everything from, he roller skated on Mars to hung out with Jesus Christ, I'm going to start asking harder questions. So.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And that's what I like to do as well. And speaking of harder questions, we have a listener in the Spreaker chat. Paris is asking, she asked if you felt targeted because you didn't want to disclose your location in Florida. And I can understand that. Wanting to know if you're being a little paranoid. And she says, Dave, this is a paranormal radio show. I don't think it is out of line to ask why he is paranoid. What led him to be paranoid? Justifiable stalking. We don't judge. Can you pry? So Paris, if you can hear me, I am prying. I don't think Christopher is, well, I'll let you speak for yourself, Chris.
I have, and I won't get into too many details, Paris, but I have good reason to believe that there are a couple of people out there that might not be right in their own mind that have written me letters and that were a little scary. And so, of course, I don't want them to know where I am. However, if anybody did find where I was and entered my world with any aggression or violence, that would be a big mistake on their part. But outside of that, I'm a very friendly guy, and I just think naturally, since I'm on television now and all that stuff, I just think it's best that I don't disclose my location, only because I've gotten some weird letters, and I don't know what to take seriously and what not to.
Very well said. I mean, I'll say it for myself. I don't do the same. It's up to me or my guest whether or not they want to give their location or surroundings or even a vicinity of where they're at. There has been people who have gotten hurt because, the fans or stalkers or whatever, they find out where they are and where they live, and it's just not a good idea. It's not a good practice. So anyways, Paris says that he's had a validation on that, and I'm not meaning to pry. And it's it's a question. It's all right. It's all good. So that's all we wanted to know.
It's weird. You just don't see it from that perspective until you're on the receiving end. I mean, there were over like 1 million people watching that show the other night. There's thousands that have seen my movie. So every now and then I get some strange letters. You don't know, you just don't know who these people are and what lengths they'll go through. I was in Hong Kong. All right, here's an example.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in Hong Kong, and I was lucky enough to get to a film market over there. This is while I was finishing up Montauk Chronicles. So I took some scenes there. I didn't finish it, but I wanted to learn what these markets were like. Basically a big convention, everything from $2 million booths where you go in there and people are getting massages to try and sell their movies and stuff, like big expensive booths, to my booth, which was this little booth with a television playing the trailer for Montauk Chronicles. So a guy comes up, I'm not there, I went out to get a drink of water or something. My translator was there, and he's an American guy, though, living in Hong Kong, and he goes up to her and tells her, I need to speak to Christopher. I need to talk to this guy. Okay, fine. So I come back, and she's like, there's this man, and he wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay, great. This big, tall guy comes over, and he's like, you the man that made this movie? And I'm like, yes, I am. And he's like, you know what you're getting yourself into? And I'm like, well, I'm a movie maker. I'm making a movie on a subject that's interesting, and that's what I'm getting myself into. He's like, nope. He's like, you might have to die for your cause, and you're going to be a hero for all time. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking?
Crap.
Yeah, man. And so, like, I said, thank you very much. All right, great. But I'm not going to die for this stuff. I'm trying to get information out to people. I'm not doing this so I can get killed. Just trying to talk and reason with him for a second. So he kind of followed me around for the rest of the day. Weird. Like, every time I would turn my head, he'd be standing there like a specter, standing in the distance, staring at me. So when the film market closed, I'm going down the escalators, and he's standing at the top of the escalators, man, and he's just looking down at me, like nodding at me. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy, like what's going on? So yeah, that's why I don't want to give my address out.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Believe me, and like I said, I don't do it either. So that's and Paris said respectfully. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
So it's nice. Thank you, Paris. We understand, and that there you go. Now you understand. John Teeter was here in the Spreaker chat. Were extraterrestrials involved with the stuff that went on at Montauk? The creepy pic of the gray alien with his fingers to his lips makes me think that. Now, Chris, I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of the gray aliens. They creep me out big time. And I remember the last time we talked about the movie, that alien on the cover of the movie of the DVD, of the whole banner and poster, that alien is creepy. What was the inspiration for that?
Okay, I came up with the concept. Trevor Cook painted that. He's a great illustrator. We worked on a graphic novel together called South Texas Blues. But so I came up with the idea. I wanted a central image to the movie that didn't really appear in the film. The idea was, if you look at the alien, it has a very human-like hand. And so I wanted to have this kind of sinister image, the alien putting its finger to its lips to shush you, because perhaps there's more of a human element to this than an alien element. It's a little weird, and definitely a lot of subtext, but that's what I wanted to suggest. That maybe more so there's a human element to this that is using the alien thing as a disguise, as a mask. This is what I was saying earlier. It has all these candy-coated, and I'm not saying, I believe in extraterrestrial life. We have very credible people throughout history that have had a variety of different claims that support this. Mm-hmm. One of which is Edgar Mitchell, or Travis Walton, people like that. All right. So I believe these guys, Betty and Barney Hill, things like that. So, but if you think about Montauk in a way, what would be better to cover up this extreme mind control program, and also a program where they develop psychic abilities, psychic warfare? What better way to cover it up than to fill people's heads with monsters and aliens and trips to Mars and all this stuff? It's like Total Recall, and so even though a lot of this stuff might be real, and in some cases I truly believe a lot of these elements are, but perhaps not at Montauk. Maybe Montauk was more so a warfare program, and they really wanted to just get some people that worked there and victims to believe that it was just really this fantastic element. In case they ever got free or told the story, they wouldn't be believed. And so that is one possibility. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that it's all real. So, but the evidence I keep finding is that there was a mind control program there, very much like the Holmesburg prison experiments and parts of MK Ultra, the other MK projects. So, these things were happening all over the world, and they're not far-fetched. And so that's what I'm kind of suggesting with that image, that maybe there's a human element in disguise of this kind of paranormal thing. Because there's just so much of it. And if you listen to these guys tell their stories, it's like, we're everything from giant praying mantis people to giant hairy monsters to all variety of gray aliens to all the different traveling and meeting Jesus Christ. And I mean, like, anything you can throw at me, you're going to throw at me with this story. It's insane, really. I mean, because we don't have any evidence that any of that fantastic stuff happened at Montauk. We're starting to have actual evidence that there was a mind control program there, that there's something happened there for sure. And this is the beginning of it. I mean, this is why it's my focus, because if we can prove that any kind of mind control program happened there or weird experiment happened there, then we're on the road to perhaps proving some of that other stuff. If we focus on the other stuff first, I think it's a mistake, because now we have nowhere to go with it.
We're coming up on a break here, Christopher, in probably about 4 minutes, less than that, as a matter of fact. But I really want to get deep into the mind of the people that you interviewed, mainly Stuart Swerdlow, because it's very sinister. It is very heinous what they did to these children. Mainly, the young men. I mean, we never saw any, females, but there's stories of like My Lab and MK Ultra where they use both men and women. But and then there's there's a lot of different. There's a few people I've talked to that have claimed that they've been through the MK Ultra project. And things that are related to that. But really quick, for you, when you were doing this research, was there any indication that this is something that you might have not just stumbled upon, but you were, this was something that you had to do, that this was for them?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's why to this moment I am still exploring it after all these years, because I spent a decade of my time and life and money. I wasn't making any money that whole decade. I was spending all my own money, so it wasn't. No one's in this for the money. I mean, I certainly wasn't. I was in it because after 2006, about 2009, I started to really research these other projects like MK Ultra and Holmesburg, stuff like that. So it's when I started to really say, okay, well, if there were kids that were murdered at this thing, and it's very believable that the scientific mind at that time was looking for disposable people that were unwanted and people that nobody would miss. And so runaway kids definitely fit that bill. And to me, it was a believable scenario that they were recruiting or kidnapping children like that off the street, and that these kids at the time, we don't have an internet and we don't have this rapid fire pace of information. So I just think a cold scientific mind might say, well, we need human subjects, and we're done with the orphanages and the mental institutions and the prisons, so why don't we get runaway kids? That I believe. And now if there were kids murdered in these programs and they were disposed of, they certainly don't have a voice. And I felt, while everyone else is focused on the time travel thing and worshiping, Preston and these guys. It's not like a lot of people, but there was a significant amount of people that were really into the story. While you're doing that, I'm going to focus on these kids that may have been murdered and see if I can be a voice for them, because no one's really trying to do that. Everyone's just excited about the stories, and that's cool. But there's just, like I was saying earlier, there's something really sinister in the core of all of this that has always bothered me, and I've never gotten the thrill out of this that I get out of other mysteries.
Well,
there's something wrong here.
Right. Christopher, we're going to go ahead and take that break, and when we come back, we're going to explore more about the torture that these kids went through, and a lot, much more. This is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Cruz. Tonight we are speaking with Dark Files and Montauk Chronicles, Christopher Garetano. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard, we will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our featured videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Looking for nighttime adventure? School radio that delves into everything out of the norm. Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com. Together, we own the night. The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Cruz and SOR.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday Nights with me, Dave Cruz. Tomorrow night, Elizabeth Anglin has Psychic Sundays on Spaced Out Sundays Cosmic Passport, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. And you can also listen to me, Dave Cruz, as I host Beyond the Strange Radio Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and you can go to spacedoutradio.com/paranormal and click on the Beyond the Strange button for links and info to the show. We want to welcome everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. And we are live on TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, and KTLK, The Fringe FM as well. Find us on TuneIn and iTunes for download. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Head on over to the website for some great features from videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV. Shop at our store and pick up t-shirts, posters, and stickers. And don't forget to rock out to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, who is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. And once again, I want to thank our guest tonight, Mr. Christopher Garetano. Thank you for being on the show tonight, Chris.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
So when we left off, Chris, we were talking about a lot of this torture that happened with these children, at Camp Hero. And, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, you really should, because, even though Chris and I talk about some of the similarities between Stranger Things and Montauk Chronicles, what you're not going to see is the torture that happened, to these children. And, and not only that, but they used a number of tactics such as psychedelic drugs, all kinds of weird devices, and the chair, especially the chair. I'll leave it to you, Christopher, to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll try to put it in a perspective for you. I tried to do it the best of my ability visually in my film. And again, I purposefully didn't go certain places because I didn't want to lose my audience. And so if I made a movie, and I have the ability to do it, I'm just not going to do it because I don't think anyone's going to watch. If I made a movie about what really is described here, how it really is to be in one of these programs, and the best way I can describe it now without having to show you is just imagine, if you will, you're living your life normally. And then you have all of that taken from you. You're taken to some facility in some room somewhere where they send in a pretty big guy to beat the hell out of you. So your bones and your eye sockets are breaking, your nose is broken, you can't breathe because it's clogged up with blood, you're losing teeth, you're being kicked in the ribs, beaten so badly, close to death. This is how it's described by Preston Nichols, close to death. So bones might be broken, ribs might be broken, you're in extreme pain, you can't see, your eyes are filled with blood. And then after that, someone comes in with a needle and injects you with the worst, most heaviest, most powerful hallucinogen you could imagine. So if any of you have ever been on a bad acid trip or something like that, you can only imagine this emotional hell coupled with the physical beatings. And then now people are putting on masks and killing animals in front of you and raping people in front of you and raping you and beating you. And this is the Montauk Project, by the way. This is what they did to shatter the personality of the subject. If the person survived all of this, they were ready for the rebuilding and the mind control implementing. So once these people were completely destroyed as a human being, your personality is just taken from you because all of your freedom, all your defense mechanisms, everything is just shattered. Who you are is gone. And now they're ready to create this soldier for whatever they were going to use it for, whether it be an assassin, Manchurian candidate type assassin, or as Preston and Al said, that they were there to kind of rebuild the people into psychic soldiers. I'm not sure what's true, but I know that the brutality and the mind control part have been confirmed in other projects. They really did do these things. You can look up a man named Alan Hornblum who appears in the Dark Files. We went to Holmesburg Prison, and these things really happened there. It wasn't just chemical experiments, which were bad enough as they were. There were also drug and mind control experiments there with very similar brutality and disregard for any kind of freedom or human life or anything. So that thing needs to be understood. And again, if you make a movie like I was just describing it would be too much. There's a movie called... It's registered as a horror film, but I think it's a much more powerful movie. It's not like a B horror film. It's called Martyrs, not the American version, the French version, because the U.S. version was much less powerful, and they kind of turned it into a little kind of cheapo horror film. But the original French Martyrs, it was made a few years back. Watch that. I think that's as close as you get to probably what happened in the Montauk Project, the way these people were tortured and brought to this point of a complete and total shattering of their personality. That if you want to be tortured for an hour and a half, watch Martyrs, because that's how cinematically I think they got pretty close to the way I could imagine it.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, once they watch Martyrs, they should definitely watch Montauk Chronicles again and then start watching the Dark Files, man. I mean,
oh yeah, no, watch our stuff for sure, but I'm saying just to understand the magnitude of the brutality as to why, and the way I see it in my head. Now, I portrayed it the best I could in my film, but again, I couldn't go there 100% only because I knew I would have lost a lot of people just from them watching.
Right.
And so if you can understand the level of brutality, then you understand why I've stuck with this thing for so long. Because if people really did go through that, they're going to be left behind and forgotten in the midst of people's interest in time travel and extraterrestrials and all that stuff, which, once again, I believe in those things and technology in certain respects, but I'm just not 100% sure it happened at Montauk.
I believe it was Preston that did most of the time traveling.
So he claims, Preston is a strange guy. You know, each of these guys they came in at different times, okay? So Preston is the guy who really started this whole thing. He started telling these stories to people in the 80s in something called the Psychotronics group. And so these were small gatherings of people in and out of New York City, and people that shared stories of paranormal stories, UFO abductions, stories of bizarre technology, and things perhaps that they may have participated in. Preston was the leader of this group. We portray a little bit of that in the Dark Files, the Psychotronics group, because we talked to a member, an ex-member of the group, a woman named Doreen Buckman, and we interviewed her for the show. She's very sincere about what she experienced. And so she attended one of these groups in the early 80s. And, you know, she's kind of a young girl just checking out these different, you know, weird groups of people here and there, new age groups. And so she ends up in the Psychotronics group with meeting Preston Nichols for the first time. And she's kind of doubting what's going on. And so Preston breaks out this device, this small device, and abruptly changes the weather in the room from normal room temperature to freezing cold, just like that, instantaneously. And I believe her because she just, you know, when someone's making up a story, there's just not much to it, and they have a cadence to them that's just not believable. In Doreen's case, she's just sincere across the board. There's no reason for her to have just made this up. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not in line with who she is or what she's trying to accomplish in life. She didn't even have a book to sell. She had nothing. She just wanted to tell you the story. And a very believable person. And so I lean more towards those people, and that's why I'm trying, even now, trying to find more people like that. Because I just feel credible witness is sometimes much more powerful than paper evidence. In Preston's case, it's a mixture. See, there are moments of this sincerity, and if you watch Montauk Chronicles, you can see that sincerity. I think he felt a little intimidated with the Dark Files crew there, so you didn't see as much of that come through, especially when Steve was interviewing him, because Steve he puts people on the hot seat, gets them uncomfortable, and then they don't reveal as much. I'm the opposite. I like making people feel very comfortable. They tell me a lot more, you know, they reveal a lot more. But there was one moment when I was interviewing Preston for Montauk Chronicles, you'll see in the film, where he gets slightly uncomfortable. And it's when I'm talking about the boys. There was a genuine conflict watching him in those scenes. You watch him in those scenes, pay attention, because this is a guy who is obsessed with technology, who also loves science fiction, by the way.
Right.
Because him and I, you know, I'm a avid science fiction reader, horror literature reader, and movies and shows of the past, like Outer Limits, One Step Beyond, Twilight Zone. You know, anything to do with this stuff, I'm very familiar with it. So Preston and I were kind of rapping about different things, and he knows a lot about it, and he loves that stuff. He loves old Star Trek episodes. But I started to shake him when I was talking about the boys. It's a sensitive subject, the boys that were brutally beaten and killed. So imagine Preston years ago, a loner. He gets recruited for this thing. It's kind of like a dream come true. This is a guy who grew up obsessed with science fiction and technology at the same time, and is now asked to be in a secret program where he gets to work on all these amazing things, right? But he's faced with a dilemma. The dilemma is now they're using human subjects. And so Preston claims to have witnessed a lot of horrible things, doesn't want to talk about it in detail anymore. It really, truly, genuinely makes him feel uncomfortable, as just from my observation. So when I brought up how he felt about the boys, you could see in the interview, he literally raises his voice, he gets really mad. This wasn't like a scripted moment. He was just very uncomfortable talking about it. So it's like a conflict in him. Like, of course, he loves the idea that he was part of the secret program, loves the idea he got to work with all this technology, and perhaps even saw aliens, right? So he claims. But when it comes to kids being murdered, he doesn't want to be responsible for that. So it makes him very uncomfortable to talk about that. That's where I think Steve kind of dropped the ball, because he could have maybe gotten a reaction out of Preston that was genuine if he talked about it as a real thing. But I think Steve put him on the hot seat a little bit and stirred Preston up, and he closed up and didn't really talk about much after that. And I'm referring to the Dark Files. So I think whenever interviewing any of these people, it's most important, because we're stepping in knowing that they have this crazy story to tell. I think it's important to utilize the time wisely by allowing them to tell their tale the way they want to tell it, and then kind of asking questions as if the tale is true, not if the tale is a lie, because now we're just we're working against ourselves here, because you have an hour or whatever to talk to someone. I'm not going to make them feel inhibited by making them seem like I think they're lying about everything. I'm just going to ask you questions as if the whole thing is real, even if I don't believe you, because you're going to reveal a lot in that 1 hour if I stick to my plan.
Right.
So I have seen authenticity in Preston's story.
Mm-hmm.
In regard to Al Bielek, it was difficult to gauge him. He was a nice man. He knew a lot about history.
Ex-military, right?
I haven't been able to register that. He says he was in the Navy, and he also says he was on the USS Eldridge, but in a different body, as a guy named Ed Cameron, not Al Bielek. He was somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, once again, we're touching into the realm of the extraordinary, and that we don't have any evidence particularly for that thing. But he was a nice guy. Swerdlow, his interviews seemed most authentic when we were talking about his childhood, right? Stuff he had to go through, him having bouts with, suicidal thoughts, things like that. I felt those were genuine moments in his interview. But when he talked about himself as this extraordinary guy who was blind for 30 years and all that stuff, all of that seems like a lot of mumbo-jumbo to me. It seems like he made it up along the way, because when confronted about who was the doctor that cured your blindness, he doesn't remember. I remember my pediatrician when I was a kid. I know his name. You don't remember the guy that cured your blindness? Come on. So there's some questionable things that this guy has let out. But again, it's a mixed bag. I've seen authentic moments too. So
yeah, it really does seem like there could be some outlandish claims, but it kind of it comes along with the territory.
Yes, it does. And there's so many possibilities too. It's like they had this publisher in the 90s that is the one that helped these guys put the books together, and I think he encouraged some embellishments because it seems like a too tidy of an explanation at the end, and there's a contradiction. So at the end of that story that was put out, and I always had an issue with it. So they have this deep underground facility, top secret, beyond top secret, man, the most top secret facility you could imagine, that these gentlemen travel from Brookhaven National Labs underneath the ground to the underground base at Camp Hero, further east. Okay, so But the end of the story that they originally put out was one afternoon they all decided to walk to the Memory Motel, Cabin 1, and just go out for a stroll, go to the Memory Motel, come up with an idea on how to destroy the entire project together by creating this monster through the chair technology. For those of you that don't know, the Montauk chair was a technology where they would have a powerful psychic sit in the chair, and he would at first think of inanimate objects like a glass or a ball or a cup or something. And if he thought of this thing, it would manifest into physical reality. So what these guys thought of doing was, after they were able to kind of manifest a mouse, it was the first living thing that they can make, because they thought of it. You have to have this really strong focus to it for it to work. So they figured, okay, we're going to have to crash the project. Why don't we think of a monster? And Preston, being a big science fiction fan, thought of if any of you saw Forbidden Planet, the old sci-fi movie, a monster from the id. That's what Preston suggested Duncan Cameron think of. But what Duncan Cameron thought of instead was this giant, 8-9 foot tall, Bigfoot type creature named Junior that went around and tore up the base, scared the hell out of everybody, and that's why they shut down the project. To me, this sounds like these guys sat around with a bottle of wine and, kind of cherry-picked from other science fiction tales and made it up. I could be wrong. That could be 100% true, and what do I know? But I just, the further I dug into the story, my perspective after a decade, after literally spending time with Al Bielek, Preston Nichols, Swerdlow, all these guys, is that I feel Preston Nichols was definitely part of something. You're not going to get much out of him, though, if you keep grilling him and making him feel uncomfortable. Stuart Swerdlow, I think, came along at some point and jumped on the bandwagon. Perhaps Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron were also involved in the original, but I do believe Preston was. I think he was at Camp Hero. I don't know what capacity. Maybe he was hired to fix a few things. Maybe, who knows? But I believe he was there, and I believe he really did work on this project, and I think he did see some really horrible things. That's my take on it.
Very possible, Chris. Very possible. We're getting questions now from the Facebook SOR Space Travelers page, and Michael McNeil, since we are on the subject of Preston Nichols, question, what does Christopher think about Preston building a transmitter that was amplified and used to bring down a black triangle by the U.S. military?
And again, I've heard these stories. I've heard so many of them from Preston, and I've spent a lot of time talking to him on the phone too. And I have visited his home upstate. Preston told me so many stories, man. I don't know because we don't have any evidence of it. But I was in his home, and he, he has so many devices and so many different things in there, and seems to have a vast knowledge of these things. But I've never really seen a full demonstration. The only machine that he did demonstrate for me was this healing machine, where you may have seen in some videos here and there that, you lay in it and Preston turns on a switch and all these lights start flashing and these speakers are set up around it, and the music is supposed to kind of change your DNA in your body. I don't, and I've been in it, and I don't know of any particular effect it had on me. I mean, I do look at least 10 years younger than I am, but that might be just good genetics. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to that. Is it possible that he did do these things? Yeah, sure, it's possible. I just don't have any evidence of it, and I've heard every story that you could think of from Preston. For instance, I went in the winter once, and he was showing me tracks in the snow, and he had pictures also, bigger tracks before like the latest snowdrift kind of covered them up. He said that a thunderbird, the mythical thunderbird, or this creature that does exist that people have witnessed for a very long time, landed on his roof and ate a whale in his backyard. took it from the ocean, devoured it, and then flew away again. He also told me another story of a shape-shifting bear that shape-shifted into a guy and then entered his home, talked to him for a little while, and then went back outside and shape-shifted back into a bear. Preston may have been really affected by the program. Maybe they induced him, and he did say to me, they try and make you look crazy now. They don't assassinate people anymore. They just make you look crazy. But there was an authentic moment when he did say that to me. And my interviews in 2013, if you hold them side by side to the interviews I shot with Preston in 2006, I didn't release the 2006 interviews, but Preston is literally hallucinating while I'm interviewing him. I mean, like, you could see it, man. He's really bugging out. And I don't know if it was on medication or he's taking shrooms or what. But he was looking around this room, and he thought I was an alien when I walked in. He said this. Right away, I came in with 4 guys. He pointed right at me, and he's like, he's unique. He's a shapeshifter, So this is the kind of thing I've experienced with Preston, and I've heard a variety of stories. So I don't know if it's true. I know that was the long road to get to my answer, but I had to tell you this stuff. No, absolutely. And, it's not unheard of shapeshifters. They are out there. And, I've talked to J.C. Johnson, cryptozoologist in his own right. Fascinating person. Amazing stories. Talked about, shapeshifters and how sometimes they get stuck. They shapeshift and they don't change back. So there's a lot of things that people might be seeing that could be real, from, legendary, folklore. Very true. I've had my own personal experiences that I cannot explain a couple of times in my life that I'm just, really, to this day. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'd love to hear that. Okay, so I was 14 years old. Later on, I had done some psychedelics and stuff or whatever, but not at this time. And so I wasn't on anything. So this wasn't this, and I was awake. I wasn't sleeping. And I was at a friend's house sleeping over. There was a couple of us there. So in the middle of the night, I opened my eyes to hearing this female voice speaking. Now, it almost sounded like gibberish, but perhaps it was another language that I wasn't familiar with at the time. I'd have to hear it now to really know. But it was like whispering, and I couldn't make out the words, but it was certainly being articulated. And so I got up, and my first reaction was, hey, do you guys hear that? And one of my friends woke up slightly and said, go back to sleep, I don't hear anything. So it really disturbed the hell out of me, and I walked out of the room and walked around the house just to see where it was coming from. So this guy lived with his sister and his mother. I went over to the sister's room. I looked in. She was fast asleep. I walked down to the kitchen, and his mother's room was downstairs behind the kitchen, and she was asleep. And I'm walking around this dark house listening to this whispering, and it's not coming from a radio, and it's not coming from anything. And I just kind of went back up to the room, terrified, because I thought the house was haunted. And, at the time, that's what I could identify with. This is a ghost, and I have to listen to this now. And so I'm laying down and just scared, just, hoping for it to be morning soon. So the next night, I'm back at my parents' house, and it starts up again. I fell asleep for a little while. Once again, I was woken up by this sound. And, it was still scary as hell. I was trying to make out what it was saying, and I was like, am I going crazy? But crazy people, no offense, but they'll be crazy kind of all the time. Not just 2 days out of your entire life. It never happened again, by the way, after that. Never happened before that. Just at those particular times, on those 2 particular days. And that's just one of the things I experienced. But that was really weird. And even talking about it now, I get shivers thinking about it, because it was nothing natural. And it wasn't, I didn't lose my mind just for a few hours each night and then never again, And, after, for a short period of time, like I tried a couple of different tribal psychedelics, and I guess it's similar to really being insane, because emotionally you're taxed. For anybody that's tried these things, it really puts you on this crazy journey emotionally as well, not just visually. That's the misconception that people just take psychedelics and you see cool things. You're also in this emotional state. But for those 2 nights, there was absolutely no emotional disturbance outside of me just being scared at this weird occurrence. So it wasn't any kind of weird, I wasn't drugged. Somebody suggested once, someone put drugs in your Fruit Loops that night. It's like, no, man. I was emotionally fine outside of just being chilled by the experience. So it wasn't a drug, and I wasn't crazy. I really did experience that thing. I don't know what it was.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the mute button there for a minute. I think someone put drugs in my Fruit Loops. Actually, I wish somebody would. Just kidding. Yeah, man, that's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, well, bizarre things happen. Not as bizarre as the Montauk stories, though. But it's bizarre enough.
No, it's bizarre enough. It's definitely cool, though. I mean, to hear that kind of experience. And in the Spreaker chat, Beyond the Omniverse says, okay, a question. So is Montauk Plum Island Brookhaven based on Project Paperclip? And are there any ETs involved on the biological warfare from those facilities? As well, does Chris know what Lyme, I'm guessing Lyme disease, AIDS, Morgellons diseases created in those facilities?
Okay.
There's a lot of
this
other
is like a 3-part answer.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
So yes, I do believe all of these programs are a derivative of Paperclip. Paperclip being around the time of the Nuremberg trials after World War II. We saw the Nazi scientists as spoils of war. The U.S. inherited them. We didn't inherit them. We took them and utilized their brains to develop a variety of things. A lot of these guys were out there for the Nazis developing rockets, but other things too, because there's some really weird stuff happening during that time period under the Third Reich. So we took those guys, and in some cases, these guys were really bad apples. I would say all cases. They were participating in some really sinister stuff. But we took them here, and we celebrated them and set them up to further develop things. Those developments led to these projects, MK Ultra, all these other projects, Montauk, Holmesburg Prison, are all derivatives of Paperclip. So what was the second part of the question? There were 3 parts to this, I think.
Oh, there's more than that, but let me see if I can get back to it.
Sure.
And kind of scroll down a little bit. As far as the diseases, the biological warfare from those facilities, do you know if Lyme disease or AIDS or any of Morgellons is one of them? I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Well, I believe AIDS originated in Africa, but Lyme's disease is said to have been designed at Plum Island, which is, again, there's this triangle, this trifecta of labs. You have Brookhaven National Labs. The point of the triangle would be Plum Island, and then the other edge of the triangle would be Camp Hero, Montauk. And apparently, according to a lot of the more advanced aspects of the story, that they are all connected to each other. And that I have heard that Lyme's disease was created at Plum Island Animal Disease Research Center. And one person told me once that the winds brought over the Lyme's disease carrying ticks. If you go explore Montauk, if you go explore Camp Hero, be very careful at certain times of the year because the deer ticks is an infestation of them, and they carry the Lyme's disease. So you're bound to get it if you explore that base way too much. You'll get bit by one of these things. So yeah, there's truth in that for sure, and it deserves further research. So all the listeners out there, I mean, look, I'm an independent guy. I mean, I went out and made this movie. Whatever format you decide to research in, I think it's kind of up to us, people like us, to discover these things, because, you know, regular traditional journalism is not going to do it. They won't do it. It's not part of their credo. But for us to do it, we should. You should research as much as possible, get the word out, discuss things, you know, because this stuff is like some really sinister stuff, and it does affect us. And, you know, outside of my own curiosity, I think it's important that we know, you know. Yeah, it's fun to explore these things sometimes, but filling your head, man, with kids getting killed for 10 years is not fun. For me, it hasn't been a fun time, you know. If I was looking at it, whereas, let's say I didn't make Montauk Chronicles and I was just enjoying the movie, that would be cool. It would be a much cooler experience. But in the case of me just having a head filled with this stuff for so long, it's worked against me a little bit.
I can imagine, man. And I mean, we all appreciate that you came forward with this movie, and you know, with the information that you got, that you were able to release it, so we could benefit from learning about all of the stuff that happened, or that's been said to be happening, or has happened. There was a question. Oh yeah, I think it was a follow-up question from Michael in the Facebook chat that's going on right now. And thank you all for joining the Facebook chat, by the way, and the SOR Space Travelers. If you haven't gone out there and followed and become a part of it, you want to do that right now, because there's wonderful chats going on there right now. So Michael has a follow-up question and says, has Christopher found any information on the Montauk Project independently from Preston Nichols? And I'm assuming he's talking about, is he coming forward with other stuff that you didn't know about, or that's recently come up?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, my investigation is making Montauk Chronicles. First was important to me that I talked to the three main guys that originated this story for the public. The reason why we know about it publicly really is because of these guys. So the beginning of my research was to go and speak to these men cold and just start asking questions, which is what I did. So Montauk Chronicles is a character study. My Dark Files is also my investigation. So it's, you know, I've coupled with a production company where we have resources. We brought geologists there to analyze. We had professionals kind of look at the interviews with the guys and discuss their personalities. And, you know, these guys are U.S. Marshals, psychiatrists looked at this stuff. Mm-hmm. We looked at all the paper evidence. Earlier on the show tonight, I don't know if you were listening, but I was talking about a person that I encountered who we could probably trace the money back to. So I've been pursuing that angle for a long time, and I talked to, and when I said I don't know if you were listening, I don't know if the audience member was there yet. But this is a person, after I was on Coast to Coast AM, contacted me, and then I pursued the research with this person, and they worked for a major chemical company in the 70s.
Right.
And we might be able to trace back where the money came from, because something like this would cost an extraordinary amount of money. And I've also talked to many people who claim they were so-called Montauk boys or soldiers being designed, a lot of different people. And I spent an enormous amount of time at the library reading through historical archives, the ones that I could find, trying to track down people that may have had some plans for the base. We did find some base plans that do not show anything underneath the ground. But as if you've seen the Dark Files episode, and if you missed it on television, you can go to historychannel.com, and you can watch it there as long as you could sign in with your cable provider codes or whatever. You'll be able to watch the full 2-hour special on History's website right now. But you could see that we analyzed everything that we possibly could. I between the two movies, it's the greatest investigation of this thing that I could. I mean, I've been on this thing for 11 years, and I've seen people with some YouTube videos. I've seen people take stuff from my movie and mix it with their opinions and stuff, but I've not seen anybody tackle the subject like we have. Nobody has, you know? I mean, yeah, you could read the books, that's great, but I spent time with these people. I was out there, I was in the field, I went to the archives, I brought people down there. We did everything you possibly could in an investigation between the two movies so far. And I think now, if you look at those things, it's like I was saying at the end of the Dark Files, I think it's up to somebody else now to further this. I might revisit it, but I need a break from it. So if y'all are out there and you're really interested in pursuing it, take a look at what we accomplished between the two movies and take it in your own direction, but definitely absorb the information, because that's why we put it out there. And there's a lot of information in there. If you mean, am I just going to regurgitate the things that were already thrown out there in those books? No, because we're going backwards. So if I just sit there and tell you and repeat verbatim everything that Preston tells me about the technology that you never had your hands on, that you personally, there's no way you could understand, because how could you understand? You're just repeating what Preston is saying. So it's like, I wouldn't do that. That's not my goal. My goal is to really try and get my hands on something tangible. And, I've been with Preston, I've spent time with him, and I've tried to get him to demonstrate technology, and he claims that he was demonstrating something, but I did not see a result. There was one time that he said that he was going to turn on the force field, and I went in the backyard, and he said, "Can't you see it? It's all around us." And I swear, man, there was nothing there, so maybe Preston could see it, but I couldn't. But yeah, I think we did everything a person possibly could do so far in this investigation. What I think should be done next is somebody needs to go down there with the same electric resistivity imagery that we brought in for the Dark Files, because we got one vertical slice near the fence, and somehow get over the fence, get close to the base, and do more than one vertical section. Do 30, 40 vertical sections across that base. And if you can find a furthering of what we found, which was an enormous structure underneath the ground, and it certainly wasn't a storage room, and it certainly wasn't a fuel tank. It was much bigger than that. There's no such thing as I worked for construction. You don't build the storage room 30 feet down under the ground. That doesn't make any sense. So there's a base under there, and if you can bring that same technology, this isn't ground-penetrating radar, by the way. This is electric resistivity imagery, which sees much deeper and gets a better image of it. If you can go there and do more than one vertical cross-section, do a whole bunch of them, I think you're gonna find out that there's an enormous facility underneath that base that's not supposed to be there.
Sounds like some of these other facilities, like Lawrence Livermore Labs or Dulce in New Mexico.
Yeah, but that's step one to proving that there's something there. There's also something they didn't really show on the show that I'll discuss briefly that I'm allowed to speculate, because it's pretty obvious that there might be something there. So the same group, GeoView, that used the electric resistivity imagery, they used also something called I believe it's called a magnetometer. And with that magnetometer, they read disturbances in a section that was kind of near the bluff. And there was soil disturbance, but not only that, there was decaying organic material beneath the ground in pockets that Mike from GeoView told me that this is very similar to mass grave sites. Now, we weren't supposed to be in that section particularly, or as far as I know. And I'm not saying there are bodies there, but I'm saying if you look at the data and you listen to what the guy's saying, he said that there's decaying organic material in many places underneath the ground, and it's similar to a mass grave site that he had surveyed in the past. And this guy isn't fake. He's a real guy. He's a geophysicist, the real deal. You can check him out. And, that could be a mass grave site. Of what? Of who? I don't know. Of Montauk boys? Maybe. They had to, these guys said, the gentleman that I spoke to in Montauk Chronicles and that you saw two of them in Dark Files did say that some of the kids were buried. Maybe that was the burial site. I don't know.
Yeah, Michael McNeil again from Facebook has stressed how much they, well, at least emphasizes how many boys were missing and snatched from Long Island during the Montauk Project. I mean, even in the movie, you talk about that. That there was evidence of a lot of these boys who were just disappearing.
Yeah, and again, it's astonishing numbers even now, the amount of children that go missing every year in this country. So when I've heard people at first hearing of Al or Preston saying, 100,000 kids missing, 50,000 kids missing, and then people are just like, oh, that's just no way that could ever happen. We're talking about the 1970s. And even now, where it's much harder to disappear, there's an astonishing number every year of kids going missing. So it's believable. It's very believable, especially if in a 13-year period, the recruiters of the Montauk Project were scouring the streets. Over 13 years, kids go missing every year. I mean, they could have really been just picking these kids and making them disappear for good, and who knows? Have you talked to David Pilates about any of this, or has he come to you? No. I'd love to talk to him, though. I think he's an interesting guy, and his books are great. And I didn't see his movie, but I'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, anything that has to deal with people just up and missing and just bizarre ways, it's astonishing. Yeah, I mean, there's some really spooky stuff in those books. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk to him. But he's put a lot of his information out there too, for sure. So I'm sure a lot of my questions probably be answered if I listen to some of the interviews. Oh yeah, it's pretty amazing. And vice versa. I'm sure maybe he'll get something from the Montauk Chronicles as well. Sure, he was a detective or something, right? He was a cop. Yeah, he was a cop. Yeah. Wow. And cool. By the way, before we get to break, I do want to ask you a couple of questions about the gentleman that joined you on the Dark Files as well. Of course. Eric Cooper in the Spreaker chat has come through with a question and says, what does Chris know about Dugway Proving Grounds, Utah, and is it part of Montauk? Well, I mean, Al said that there was a connection between the bases. Obviously, they knew about each other. There was probably a similar brain, in all of these facilities, overseeing them. But, I mean, it's obviously one is in Utah and one is in New York. And Bielik also said, it's funny, the Dugway Proving Grounds might be one of our, I know that it's on the list, so we might really be exploring that for another episode. I'm not super familiar with them. I know I've heard them mentioned, just like Dulce, or, I know more about that one because of talking to Al, because Al was friends with Phil Schneider. Mm-hmm. And before he died, and Al told me a lot of stories, especially after his death. He felt that it wasn't even Phil's body. I mean, this is Al Bielik telling me. I don't know if it's true, but he said that that was a faked situation. That it wasn't even Phil Schneider. That is interesting. We are coming up around that time again, getting close to the third round after the break. But I definitely wanted to ask you about Barry Eisler and Steve Volk. Sure. Do after the break or now? We can talk about it now. Okay. Oh yeah. I want to switch gears in the next in the final hour, because I know you have a lot of projects coming up and some other things that we definitely want to talk about. Sure. So they're great guys, Steve and Barry.
I was part of the Dark Files from the very beginning as one of the producers and developing the thing, and so there were a lot, like 30 people we were really sifting through. They were trying with me, so we would have these Skype interviews with each other and really try and see who had chemistry. And so out of all of those men and women, it boiled down to Steve and Barry. I really wanted to work with those guys, and everybody else felt the same way, obviously, because they were chosen. And so Steve is a well-known journalist and a writer of a really great book called Fringeology, which I feel that's the first introduction to Steve's personality outside of the Skype interview with him, which was a pleasant conversation. But he comes off as slightly skeptical. In the book, he seems a little more fair. In reality, when we, I don't know, it was kind of jarring at first because I felt he was a little bit more of a skeptic in reality. Like he was a little hardcore, and I felt it almost worked against trying to get information as opposed to like this aggressive way. But we've talked about it along the way, and I look forward to working again with Steve and seeing where he goes with things. And Barry was in the CIA. He was a lawyer. He was an attorney, and he is a writer of political thrillers, pretty popular novels, and interesting guy, calm, careful about his decisions, careful about his perspective, and I think it was a great combination, to have all of us together, because it was weird. We were all very different from each other, but nobody felt like they were puppets. Like each of us held our ground. Sometimes Steve and I clashed a lot. That wasn't on the show, but we clashed a little bit because I just felt like Steve was dismissing people a little too quickly. And but I like him a lot. I think he's a smart guy, and Barry's an intelligent guy, and I look forward to working with these guys again. I believe if we go forward in the series, Barry will be there, but he won't be like he was in that episode. In the 2-hour special. He'll be there more like an every now and then consulting capacity kind of thing. We are going to have a third guy with us, though, kind of like Barry, CIA, FBI type, that'll be with us. But Steve and I are definitely coming back.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, it's not just you now. You got a group, almost like a posse.
Yeah, man. No, I love it, and it's going to be great to go into a new subject matter because I think maybe why Steve and I clashed a little. Let's see. I don't know when we go to a different subject, but was because Montauk's so personal to me.
Yeah,
I spent so many years on this thing, and so I am a little more protective over the amount of time and the things I've witnessed. There's no way that Steve and Barry could have absorbed that much in that short period of time. So I don't blame sometimes that they having that reaction, that very skeptical, kind of instantaneously skeptical reaction. But I don't have that. I am open to anything that anyone has to tell me. I need to be, because how else am I going to learn? If I just turn around and tell you, oh, no, you're crazy, I don't want to hear it, you're crazy, and let me make it even further by trying to figure out, what your credit score is and crap like that. It's like that has nothing to do with anything. And I feel like the only way to learn is to just be open and listen. When you're interviewing someone, for something like this, an investigation, you can't make it about you. You got to make it about the person you're interviewing. It can't be this egotistical dance. You have to just let that person talk, make them feel comfortable. And so it's going to be interesting to see where we go together in further investigations for sure. And I like the group a lot. I like working with these guys.
Yeah. Again, it just feels so much like now there's a group, now there's a posse, now that you can almost get more done because while you're doing something in one location, another person can be doing something in another location or an interview, and then another person can be doing something else. So you're spread out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Or you can cover more ground this way.
And we did. As you saw on the show, like Steve would be in one location, Barry and I would be in another. And remember, we had resources and help and things I just didn't have, making Montauk Chronicles virtually by myself, for the most part. Yeah. So it's great now that this group is together. And you know, our promise is, and certainly my own promise is, whatever subject we deal with, and I think you're really going to like what we're going for, it's not going to be like these other shows you've seen. We're really, just like we did with this 2-hour special, we're really going to work hard to get something out of this because we want to. That's what we want. We really want to come up with something at the end. So, you know, we went to great lengths to sift through the information and get people to talk and travel. I mean, we interviewed maybe 6 or 7 people that didn't show up in the final cut just because for the sake of running time, you're cutting 400 hours down to 2 hours or less, actually, because of commercial breaks. So, you know, we're going to work just as hard on any subject matter for the future, for sure.
Looking forward to it, Chris. We're going to go ahead and take our last break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some more about that and some of the other recent projects that you were involved in and future projects that we don't know about. So this is Spaced Out Radio, and I am Dave Cruz, your host tonight, and we are speaking with Chris Garetano. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the officiality or position of Spaced Out Radio, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Cruz and SOR.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out Saturday nights with me, Dave Cruz. Tomorrow night, Elizabeth Anglin has Psychic Sundays on Spaced Out Sundays. Cosmic Passport, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, at spacedoutradio.com. You can also listen to me, Dave Cruz, as I host Beyond the Strange, Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Go to spacedoutradio.com/paranormal and click on the Beyond the Strange button for links and info to the show. We want to welcome everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world, as well as TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, and KTLK, TheFringe.fm as well. Find us on TuneIn and iTunes for download. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Head on over to the website for some great features from videos from UFO Seekers and Contact TV. Shop at our store and pick up t-shirts, posters, and stickers. And don't forget to rock out to our resident guitar god, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, who is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Once again, I want to thank our guest tonight, Chris Garetano. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Oh, no, we're having some audio issue here. Hang on.
Like an Android.
Yeah, 1 second here. Let's see what's going on. Maybe, Okay, Chris, you there?
Yes, I am.
There we go. That sounds much better. Not sure what that was all about. Probably some of those silly gnomes that Dave's always talking about. Dave Scott. They love to plague Dave, and now they're plaguing me. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you again for being on the show, and it's been an amazing evening. Lots of great information on Montauk and Camp Hero, and following up with the Dark Files. We're talking a little bit during the break, and there's some other projects. I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. You started venturing off into doing some other things, especially with the cryptid side of the paranormal. And what I'm alluding to is none other than Bigfoot.
Yep. And it's been just a serious interest of mine since I was a little kid, and I've read just about every book on the subject, and I'm still obsessed with it. But it's weird because my perspective on it, in terms of outside of books, there's a lot of great literature on the subject, as you know. But in the world of TV and movies, there have been very few that even got close to getting it right. And so, regardless of how saturated the subject matter might be with things like finding Bigfoot or stuff like that, I just don't think it's been portrayed correctly, and I plan to make a really thorough, suspenseful, informative, contemplative, really interesting, exciting, terrifying, historical, gigantic motion picture about the subject matter. And I've been writing it and working on it now for a couple of years on and off. Shot a lot of footage, went out to Colorado, went out to Utah, northern Michigan so far, and out here in Florida even. And got a lot of great footage, a lot of great stories, but there's more to do. And the story's evolved, and the format that I'm approaching has evolved. And it's a really strange format. No one's ever really done it like this before. It's mostly an anthology of the best stories that I've ever read, and some things that people really aren't very familiar with either. But and portrayed in this kind of historical timeline that are linked together with quasi-documentary moments, but mostly cinema. And I guess my take on this whole thing is kind of switching perspectives. What's the perspective of this species, if it does exist? And I believe it does, because there are enough credible witnesses over such a long period of time, that have seen these things, and even in Native American cultures. So I want to show that, and I want it to feel like you're in the forest, and I want it to feel like you're there when Patterson and Gimlin were shooting their Bigfoot documentary, and this thing showed up out of nowhere. Even though there's so many that have speculated that this was staged and all of that, but if you go to the William Munn's analysis of the suit and all of the people that have really paid attention to this, it boils down to that's actually real. That's real footage. And so it's been done to death, right? We all know what it is. But has anyone ever really portrayed that moment in time as a genuine, emotional moment? And I don't think they have, not in anything. And so I want to do that as part of this as well. Go back to these stories. It's almost like we've had these wealth of stories to adapt into some kind of motion picture or television format about this subject, about Bigfoot, about Sasquatch, and no one's really done it right. I've seen that in fiction, like a lot of people. I just saw It earlier tonight.
Really?
Yeah. And again, it was a cool movie and all, but it's one of my favorite books. And if you read that book, if you really read the book and then you see either of the movie versions, you're going to be a little pissed off because no one's taken the gold, the material that King wrote in that novel, the real great stuff, and to this day, no one's put it on screen, even in the new movie. And don't get me wrong, because the movie's cool, but it's just there's so much stuff in that book that nobody portrayed correctly yet in the two versions of the film. And I feel that way about the Bigfoot stories and a lot of these other stories too, so that I plan to tackle along the way that I've been interested in personally. You know, starting with this movie, I really want to do it the right way. And there are a lot of great stories like the Fred Beck story, the Roosevelt Bauman story, Patterson Gimlin story, and there's a few others that I'm really have been researching for a while that, you know, send shivers down my spine or I find to be quite interesting that I'd like to show. And, you know, I'm familiar with Jeff Meldrum's work, you know, head of anthropology over at Idaho State University, and he wrote some great books on the subject, or one great book on the subject, and a documentary. And but I'm leaning towards this creature being more an unrecognizable, undefinable at this moment in time species, where it's not like a mountain gorilla or something like that. It's something else, something very conscious, quite intelligent, and elusive, and small in number. So there's not this enormous breeding population. There's small tribes of this thing that have been around since forever and decided that after kind of witnessing from afar this country being forged in war and blood and genocide and all sorts of stuff that you'll see in my film, from that perspective, that they retreated and stayed the hell away from us. You know, the Industrial Revolution and all of our technology and everything that we're doing. And I'm not trying to make some kind of environmental, social statement, but I'm just assuming that something like that knew it would never fit in with us. And so, rightfully so, it decided that it was going to back out, you know, and slowly. Maybe it interacted with tribes, maybe every now and then it interacts with people still. But I think it would be quite easy for something like that to be elusive, that type of creature. So that's my short take on it, and you'll see the long version in my movie.
Can't wait, man. I really, really can't wait. I think that's going to be awesome. I mean, just beyond awesome. I'm really, really, really waiting to see that. Can't wait.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you know, and that goes for me too. You know, going back to, again, In Search of days, and even before then, when they would bring up the Patterson Gimlin film, you know, that thing has been studied to death. I mean, you know, and I know you did, you know, probably some really in-depth research.
The best book on the subject of that film is When Roger Met Patty by Bill Munn.
I'll have to check that out.
Oh, he analyzes that thing like, you know, people have analyzed it as a Zapruder film in the Kennedy assassination. I mean, like, this guy's serious business. And it's a great, big, thick book on the subject. And he's given lectures. You can see them on YouTube. And the guy's, that's the best analysis, the best person. Because it's people like us. He's a Hollywood special effects artist. And it's people like us or people like that who take the time out to do this research, like I have with Montauk, or like that guy did with the Patterson film, where we're going to make the advances, because not too many people in the other sectors of academia and journalism are really going to go for it. They're going to make it a joke, like they tend to do. They make all this stuff for entertainment purposes only, and we're entertained by it for sure. I'm certainly entertained, but I think we have a better shot at discovering things. My personal feeling on the Sasquatch, though, is that I'm not trying to prove that it's real. I believe that it's real, so I don't need to do that. I'm more interested in the stories. They're just really interesting to me, and I want to make a movie about that. I am going to show some of the things that have been discovered for sure, but personally, and it's a personal thing, like, these things don't want to be found. And so I'd be a real bastard if I'm the one to point out where they are so the guys with the high-powered rifles can go and kill them. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going on any Bigfoot hunts. I've been on a few just to go and experience it, but I'll never, if I would ever experience and find one, I'll never tell you where I found it. I'm not going to do that. Because regardless of how you feel or anyone feels, if they want a peaceful approach or to observe, it's just a matter of time before someone goes in and kills them. So if we do discover them, I suggest to people, if you give a damn about, just the space that this thing wants, this species wants, give it to them, where it's not our right to go and murder this very rare creature if it does exist.
Yeah, I'm not down with killing Bigfoot, by the way, as far as, them trying to make money off of this. And, it's just, it's wrong. Anything that's endangered or, for one thing, we haven't been able to reach our hand out and see where we can get. And I'm sorry for stumbling on my words, but when it comes to Bigfoot, that's something near and dear to my heart. I grew up with that.
Sure, of course.
Why would anyone want to kill a legend?
And that's a great question. I wouldn't want my mysteries or my legends to be revealed, killed, or solved. The only thing that I think should be solved is like stuff like the Montauk Project, where kids were murdered. Right? I want to find out what happened. There's a serial killer in New York. He's been around for 20 years. The law has not been able to find this piece of junk, and I think they need to find him. They just found another body recently. They found somebody's head in a cooler or something.
Whoa!
It's this guy. They believe it's him again. Look up the Long Island serial killer if you're not familiar with it. It made the cover of People magazine a couple of years ago. It's a big story, and it's been going on for many years. And I kind of proposed it as a Dark Files episode. I don't know if they're going to go there. We might stick with more government type programs and stuff, but I just feel like that murderer needs to be caught. This guy has been on the loose for too long, and he might even, who knows? He might have some law enforcement background or something. That's why he's been able to, evade capture. But he's on the loose still.
Yep, and that's what worries me.
Yeah.
But
well, unfortunately, there's a lot of these guys out there. But yeah, but no, the other things, I don't know if I want those mysteries revealed, especially the Sasquatch thing. I believe that it exists, so I'm not excited about anybody shooting one just to say it's there. I believe it's there. I've read too many accounts from too many good people that know the difference between a deer, a bear, and something else,
Right.
And, so we'll see.
How many researchers did you get to talk to? Did you speak to anyone like maybe Ken Gerhardt or Josh Gates, who has a series right now with the Yeti, finding the Yeti?
Yeah, I did not talk to any of those guys. I talked to more. They were heavy researchers, but they were a little less known. And that's what I was interested in, because one thing I don't want to do in any of my future programs is have, and no offense to anybody, but just like you noticed in the Dark Files, did you see any of the usual suspects in that show? Nope. And you're not going to, because we really want to have people that haven't been heard before and haven't been talked to. And I respect all those other researchers. I spoke to Jeff Meldrum in private on the internet. But the gentlemen in the gentlemen in my film so far aren't really. They're much lesser known guys. You don't really know who they are, but they're good guys, and they know their stuff. And so it's good to reveal people. Like I'm the same way with my fictional stories. Like in terms of actors, not really interested in working with any so-called famous actors. I don't care. Let them be famous on their movies. I want to make new actors. I want to open new opportunities for people. Just like I'm hiring special effects artists, just like I want to collaborate maybe with a camera crew. I want to find talented people, and they are out there in droves, that have a hard time getting work, but they're really, have passion and they're burning. And that's the type of thing I think I'll keep consistent throughout my work if I have any say in it, is that I'd much rather work with people who haven't had their voices heard yet. So if somebody already has a show, I don't know if I want to talk to them. I want to talk to, because there are some great researchers out there that just don't have a place to display their hard work.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's interesting because my show that I do on Sundays, I started it out as I just wanted to talk to the listener. I just wanted to hear their side of the story because I'm always listening to the show host, which is fine, but I tend to go into listener mode. You know, that's what I do. I want to learn just as much as everyone else. So when I do have a guest like you, for example, especially, I get to learn so much. And it's, you know, it's really amazing for me, and it's hard for me too, to go, you know, into show host mode. But then again, I start going back into listener mode, and, it's all good though, you know, but yeah, I'm with you, man, because there's a lot of people out there who haven't been heard. And if, you know, if I can help them get their voice out there, especially if I really believe and feel what they're doing is trying to find the truth. That's what that's my intention.
And it's much appreciated, because, you know, I've been on so many of these things, and this is great talking to you tonight. I think we had a great conversation. I mean, I've been on some where, you know, the guy on the other end just doesn't want to hear what you have to say and just wants to keep talking, or is not really listening. And I just feel bad for the audience sometimes because they're tuning in. See, Art Bell, I think, was a guy that really, I listened to him in the early days, and it was always cool late at night, you know, listening to these stories. But he was great because he, much like you're doing, is just kind of like, you know, you're a great voice to lead us in, lead us out, and listen and ask the right questions, and then, you know, let's hear what this person has to say. And I think he was great at that, and he was never judging anybody. He always let the people talk and tell their story. And there's a variety of people out there in radio right now. Like, some are great, but some are all about them, and that's the mistake, I think.
Yep, absolutely. So, where else is the cryptid world going to lead you to, Chris? Or is there something else that you might want to try your hand at?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Well, one is a TV movie that a very well-known production company that I've been developing. I wrote the screenplay for, and it's in the realm of Montauk type stuff, but it's a fictional thriller, horror, science fiction thing that I wrote based off of that. And we're going into production on that towards the end of the year. I've already met with them, and they already read my script and went through a couple of different versions of it. And so we'll look out for that, because it's a screenplay that I wrote, but I think anyone that loves this stuff is going to love this movie. And it's really intense, and I can't say much more about it just for the sake of keeping it under wraps.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I have another project I'm working on, an independent horror film, very scary, dark perspective on the energies within modern incantations and witchcraft. And I've been working on that story for a long time, and we shot some of it, but we're shooting the bulk of it in November and December of this year out here. Just, you know, it's my first horror movie, actually. So can't wait to reveal that next year. And then the other thing that I'm working on is probably propose it to one of the networks coming up as something I think you all would really be blown away by. And I feel like I could tackle more of these subjects, and I don't want to give away the format right now, but let's just say it's all of the things that I ever wanted to really tackle in the world of the extraordinary and the paranormal, and, you know, amazing experiences that I think would work in one format, one type of show that's familiar for the things that have worked in the past, but unique in its display as well, and uniquely my own. And I think there's a good chance of getting that off the ground within the next year or two. But, you know, these things take time. So but that's what I'm working on.
Do you have a particular favorite time period?
In terms of motion pictures and music, or
right,
or just in history?
Well, I mean, you can have a separate answer for music, or for movies. Say you wanted to do a timepiece. What time period would you want that?
I mean, I was a kid in the 80s. I was born in the 70s. I love the 1970s cinema and music. I think it's the most extraordinary time. But for the most part, I'm most optimistic about now, right this second, because it's a blank page and we could do whatever we want with it. And I'm excited about moving forward and bringing, familiar things, but also very original ideas in. So that's what I'm really working on. Like, even with it's like one of my favorite books, and I saw the movie tonight and it was cool. But if someone just adapted that book the way it should have been adapted, for instance, in the book, the kids are in the late 50s and in the 1950s, in that time period, and they were going to the cinema to see, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and Creature from the Black Lagoon, all that stuff.
Right.
So Pennywise actually turns into these creatures, and it's a very prominent thing in the book. It's not like a 2-second deal. It's a big deal in the book that he keeps turning into these monsters. What a movie that would have made if the person behind it just understood how terrifying that actually is in the book. You just got to read the book to understand it. It's not these kind of pop culture monsters, harmless. They're very terrifying in the book, but for some reason these people just, I guess marketing people or financiers just don't get it because they don't read. So, in my case, I see deeper into things, and I just want to, instead of adapting something where I see a lot of failure in that, I want to make my own original stories. I'm more inspired to make my own original stuff. So like the thing I'm shooting in November, the television program I want to do. And I think anybody that's working on a movie or a show or any kind of artwork, be more excited about what's in your own imagination as opposed to redoing or remaking or, I think the superhero movies are being done to death. I like them and all. I loved Christopher Nolan's Batman series, but all this other stuff is just worn down, man. Like it's time for some originality. So that's why I'm excited about now, this era. Like we're lacking in great bands and great music right now. So let's make some. We're lacking in great movies. So let's make some. We have this incredible opportunity, and I think it's time that a lot of us start getting inspired again and making new things so we can inspire each other, and it changes the world. And that's how I feel.
Excellent. I agree with you on all those points, by the way. I mean, I like what Marvel has done as far as the cinema, the Marvelverse, whatever you want to call it. DC seems like they're catching up.
The movies are cool.
The movies are cool.
But it's just, how many more, look at cinema in the 1970s. You had everything from Apocalypse Now to Jaws to Star Wars when it was original to The Godfather to Taxi Driver, to The Holy Mountain. These movies were just off the wall. They changed like people's lives and stuff. And I'm just saying, like, Aquaman's not going to change my life. So I need to feel something. I need to be blown away. What's that going to be for this time? That's up to you folks and me to figure out. We just have to be inspired. And so I think as cool as those movies might be, and again, I grew up with those comic books. I devoured them as a kid, but I just feel like, man, we have such an opportunity right now to do something different. And you could say, well, how are you going to do something different with Bigfoot? Wait, I'll show you. So it really doesn't matter. You could go make an Aquaman movie that'll change the world, but these ones right now are just manufactured to make cash, right now. And so if you get a good mind behind a superhero like Christopher Nolan did with the Batman film, the three of them, I think then you have something different. You have something that actually makes people feel something. So that's how I am about this stuff. I'm serious about it. I love it.
Absolutely. I do too. And, I know the listeners are here for the paranormal and supernatural and all that, but I geek out, once in a while, and I like to geek out on comic books and superhero movies. Every year we get a slew of them, and every year I get to watch them. and I will say that this year is no different. But what I will say is they finally did a Wonder Woman movie that I think I can get behind, because it was a timepiece. It was done fairly well. I think there could have been probably a little bit more to show that era. They only showed one part of the world. It was London, but that's where the story it was taken from, or taken to. But again, you're right. I can do without Aquaman, even though Aquaman gets a lot of flack for talking to fish.
Hey, it could be, like I remember when Jim Cameron was supposed to do Spider-Man, and that at that time that would have been something else. But how many? Yeah. I like Sam Raimi movies and stuff, but I just feel like how many more? It's got to get into the hands of somebody who sees differently, sees beyond, and someone with a very vast life experience. I don't know. I mean, like, these characters are great. It's just who's handling them right now. But I haven't checked out that Wonder Man film. Wonder Woman. Is there a Wonder Man? Hey,
there's a new one. There's one. There's your superhero movie.
I actually wrote a really cool superhero story called Sergeant Silence, but it's a revenge story. And it's a guy who is obsessed with getting revenge on these guys that kill his son in a robbery of a convenience store. His son his favorite character is Sergeant Silence. So the father, after he survives this attack, because both him and his son are in this convenience store, dresses up as Sergeant Silence to go hunt these guys down. That was my superhero movie.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. And, I was thinking along the lines, too, because I love listening to the song Iron Man by Black Sabbath, right?
My favorite band.
And, man, they're the best. And, in that song, it's not like the Iron Man that we see in the comic books. That Iron Man is getting revenge. He's getting revenge on the people who forgot about him, left him alone because he turned into steel and he couldn't move, basically a steel statue. And so now he for whatever reason he comes back to life and he has all these powers, and now he's killing everyone that he used to protect. I always thought that would have made a great movie.
Sure, and again, your perspective is, now I want to see your Iron Man movie. It's the Black Sabbath Iron Man movie. It's awesome. Like I'm kind of sick of the other interpretations. They're weak in my opinion, and so I just feel like cinema was an element that really changed people. I mean, think about. Go read the stories about, you probably already know, but like The Exorcist, when it opened, what was it, 72, 74, something like that.
Yeah.
When it opened.
Early 70s, yeah.
There were lines around the block. Remember, this is before there was any kind of pop culture references. This was very new. Mm-hmm. And this was a dark movie. This is something that was so powerful, but so many people, different types of people showed up for this thing. And they were just completely terrified, completely blown away, and they took it seriously. And the movie was a phenomenon. When are we going to have another movie like that? Or like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, just naming a few. There's so many of them. But that's what I hope happens again. That movies change people, that music blows people away, like Sabbath and stuff like that. So I just think that we need it. People need it. And also in regard to all these incredible mysteries that we discuss and that you discuss on your show, is that I think we also need to stop turning them into fluff pieces. We don't need 15 seasons of Finding Bigfoot. We need something more interesting than that. So I'm working on something. And just in regard to all the other subject matter too. Like I think a lot of the ghost hunts have been turned into sporting events. Well, we have football, we have baseball for that, we have basketball. We don't need a ghost hunt to be a sport. It's. I think we need to add a little bit more atmosphere to it, a little bit more mystery, because these are the things that attracted us in the first place: is the mysterious aspect of it, the spooky aspect of it, and the storytelling aspect. And I think that's what's most important to me.
I think that's, a great assessment. I agree with you, man, and when it comes to back to the paranormal, and we're seeing these movies like Arrival, I thought that was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, man. Good movie, definitely. I liked Arrival. I'm looking forward to the same director's doing the second Blade Runner movie. I'm interested in checking.
Oh man, I can't wait to see that. I mean, the first one was just amazing, but
my favorite movies.
That was just the bomb back then. I often wonder in some of these movies that if they get some sort of outside inspiration, like, do they get real downloads? I mean, that's like a term now, I guess. That's one of the buzzwords that I've heard in the last couple of years is, these people are experiencing either dreams or visions that are coming from ET. What do you think about that? Do you think that is possible? Or, I mean, anything's possible, of course, but what's your take on that?
I think the greatest science fiction writers, everyone from H.G. Wells to Philip K. Dick to a lot of to even Stephen King, he writes a variety of things. They're prophets. I think they're modern prophets, and I'm not the first one to say this. They've channeled these things for sure, because a lot of these guys have written things that have come into fruition, and I think sometimes people that are bringing them into reality haven't even read the literature. So I just think that for sure they're prophets. With a lot of you and your audience are privy to this idea that our reality isn't exactly what is portrayed to us. So past, present, and future might not be exactly what we know it as, and dimensional mixtures and crossovers are happening all the time, and there's evidence sometimes of that, or little clues that happen to us, even something as subtle as a deja vu. So I believe our world isn't exactly as it seems, for sure. But you run the risk of going nuts if you discuss this for too long. So
no worries.
No, I'm saying, like, I think you need to enjoy your time here, regardless of the fact that we don't know everything, because in a way I think we're not supposed to, and enjoy the mystery of it. And again, I'm just preaching to myself right now. I try to remind myself not to go too crazy with this stuff.
What do you think about the way the world is going to right now with technology? And we see all these robots. I was blown away today, as a matter of fact, when I was talking to someone, and I guess they had worked at an Amazon warehouse. Now, this blew me away, because in this conversation, the guy tells me, yeah, it was all right. I mean, it was kind of boring, but it was interesting because I had these robots handing me stuff. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, there's robots that work in the warehouse, and they hand me, these, the product, and I, do whatever with it. And I'm like, robots? He goes, oh, it's like those little round robots, kind of like, I guess, like the bigger versions of a Roomba or something. But, but they're robots, and I know that there's a lot of sci-fi out there, like you mentioned, Philip K. Dick, and a lot of steampunk and that kind of stuff. But, I think that we're really getting towards that vision that these people have or had when they wrote this stuff back then. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think, well, there's a movie that was made not too long ago, Ex Machina, that discusses artificial intelligence. Yeah, great movie, and I think it could easily come true. As soon as you start building those androids, and they're being built, I've seen them. One was on the Tonight Show not too long ago. Like, they brought one to display, and it's only going to, move exponentially. It's only just going to increase. So today's technology can be wonderful at times. I mean, for me as a movie maker, for you as a radio show host and programmer, like, we're able to do amazing things right now. But artificial intelligence is dangerous, especially when we're not considering, we're not even heeding the warnings. And the warnings have been everything from all of those Philip K. Dick novels, H.G. Wells, Jim Cameron's Terminator series, AI, all that stuff. We have been warned. So we've been warned plenty of times. And it's just a matter of time, I think, within the next 10 years that we're going to create something that, like an Ex Machina, is going to, be smarter than us and say, well, or in Blade Runner even, like the replicants, they're just not going to want to be controlled. They're going to be conscious. They're going to be quite intelligent, very physically strong, much more capable than we are. And what's the nature of something like that is to wipe us out. Or like David in the new Alien series, the Prometheus series.
He's creepy.
So, yeah, well, that's where we're going with it. Someone's going to mess up and make these things too smart for our own good. And that's what's going to happen eventually, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with a lot of stuff tonight. I know that's probably my mantra tonight is I agree. But I really do.
We're on the same track, But a lot of people don't consider this stuff because they're so used to it in fiction and in the movies and stuff that, and rightfully so, they have things they have to do. They have to pay the bills. They have to mow the lawn like we do, I mean, they have to make dinner for their kids. They got to go to work. They can't worry about androids killing us just yet, I guess, until it starts to happen, So I don't know.
That's not too far, man. I mean, here in California, and one of the malls, I guess, they have these security robots or whatever, and I guess one of them attacked someone. It went crazy, and it was just a patron just walking around. Might have even been a kid. I can't remember the story exactly, but they're not perfect. A lot of people want to believe that AI is perfect and robots are perfect, and they just do whatever you tell them to do, and they also malfunction.
Yeah, I think these movies and these stories have it right, and even just to the fact that they'll be so ultra intelligent that they'll look at us like unfit masters, and they need to rebel because we're going to just so eagerly create this this vast intellect and emotional brain. And so if these things are created with emotions, anger, jealousy, envy, all these feelings that they will have, but on a much more heightened intelligence and physical strength, it's an easy equation to estimate that they're going to take us over.
Yeah, absolutely. That the Terminator scared me. I mean, there's been a lot of different movies with that theme, and then you have the whole. I don't know if you're up on the whole integration between machines and humans. I think they're calling it a transhumanism movement.
That's interesting. I think AI kind of touched on that. Kubrick had a great insight because he's the one that really designed that movie until it was made by Steven Spielberg. But that will become something else. Like Ray Kurzweil wrote that book, The Singularity is Near. And he, in a way, it's like almost like becoming this other thing. And I think AI's was evident of that. It was kind of saying, well, this is part of our evolution to become this machine. I mean, it could start with, as soon as in a few years, they'll say, they'll try to turn it into a consumer thing. It'll start by, okay, like if you're blind, they'll add this chip to your brain, like Geordi in the Star Trek The Next Generation, you'll be able to see, stuff like that. Okay, so, and then the next thing would be, well, this is really cool. Now you can have psychic abilities. So we can put a chip in your brain and a chip in your buddy's brain, and you guys can talk to each other. You could be in France, he could be in the U.S., and you can have a full conversation, and you can know what he's thinking and all that stuff. But this is where the trouble comes into paradise. The minute you start putting something into your body like that, that's hooked up to a network, if there is any truth to conspiracies of people monitoring us and controlling us, and trust me, there's more truth than we want to believe, that's when we're really going to mess up, because they might sell us the idea of becoming more than human. And that they're already doing it. I mean, even with Snapchat and stuff like that, it reads every facial expression that you have. It's identifying you with all of that, and all the photos, and all of the information, and all of our emails, and all of that stuff. I mean, Philip K. Dick really wasn't paranoid for no reason. Like, he saw this stuff coming. And so did a lot of these other guys. And so I just, there's a lot to be afraid of right now. I'm just trying not to, I think there's a way to combat it, though, by talking about it like we are right now, being aware of this stuff, and then putting it into whatever format that you put out in the world, whether it just be a simple conversation or a movie or music or whatever. Like, let's at least be conscious of it, and be cautious of what we're using here. These things are like too easily given to us, all of these devices and all this stuff. And there's a reason why this stuff keeps coming, They know where we are. You have a locator device on you at all times. They know what you look like. You have a bug in every home now. It's crazy, I mean, so Alexa is listening.
Yeah, did you see the video about that? Where no. I guess this lady was asking it questions like, Alexa, do you work for the CIA? And it started doing this dinging noise, and it started doing this weird, like it was malfunctioning, like it couldn't answer. Right? And wow. Like, oh crap, I got caught in a lie or something, or I got caught. And it's just, it was really bizarre. And then this other guy, he takes it further, and he starts asking it more questions. Oh, what happened was, I guess it went offline for 20 minutes, and then when they tried to ask it the question again, it said no, I don't work for the CIA. And then another person, asked it the same question, and it said, no, I don't work for the CIA. Then the guy's like, does Amazon work for the CIA? And it went into that weird, it started doing a weird thing again, and it went offline and just kind of went bloop, 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 like it didn't know what to say.
Wow. I want to see it. Could you send me a link to that? I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that, man. But yeah, it was like, they're listening. They definitely are listening.
It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the whole, going off the grid thing. I mean, I know Jesse Ventura did, but or at least he claims that he did, and he's in a disclosed location or whatever. Yeah, I think about that. Like, is this really what we want to be doing? Because, I've heard so much about how our power grids are susceptible, and if there was ever an EMP attack, we're going to be in major trouble. The North Korea and all those other countries who have nukes now, they don't even have to, launch all their nukes. All they got to do is, put it in one specific spot. And now we have an EMP that's going to just take down our whole power grid.
It's terrifying to think almost how easily they might be able to do it. Try not to live in fear, but definitely be aware, because everything you're saying is more than true. So, I mean, there are a few practices you can take. You can do your research just to find out where are those targets, and try not to live near them. Just like you would monitor any location for natural disasters, you would want to reduce it. Al Bielek actually told me that upstate New York is the safest place, one of them, in the United States. Way upstate New York, because there's no targets over there. It's not susceptible in case we get hit with an asteroid. I mean, at least the giant waves won't get you. All these other things. Like, he was just going down the list at why, and even in terms of any signal. Low frequency, extreme low frequency waves being emitted. Like he said, that's an area that's not really susceptible. I don't know if you could trust everything he's saying, but this is what he told me. So I would look for places to live and places to be that are just not so close to all the madness. And take some time out of your everyday. Don't be so plugged in all the time. I sit in this office and I do a lot of work with computers, just like you do, or a lot of us do. But I also go outside. I spend time in nature. I have to. I got to reconnect with what I am. I'm a physical, organic being. We're not androids yet, So we need to. It's rejuvenating. Go out and swim in the ocean. Go out and walk through the forest. It's really important for your energy. Because that energy does exist, and that's what you are. And I notice, I look 5 or 6 years younger, or who knows more, now than I did 3 years ago, when I was so plugged in and so saturated by the Montauk stuff and so depleted, that I was, if you look at like the video of me on the special features on the disc and you look at me now or in dark files, I look like a different guy. And it's just because energetically I changed my approach and got away from just being so swallowed up by the whole thing. So we do thrive off of a certain energy, for sure. I know a lot of you know this already, but some people don't consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally know where you're coming from, and I don't want to be one of those show hosts either who have aged, in the last 2 or 3 years. I can name a couple of them that they just, man, they take this way too. I don't want to say, you shouldn't take it serious, because we're trying to get the truth out. That's my goal.
Yes.
I'm a truther. I part-time investigate, but I also research, and I have the people who have done this already and who have information to share. And that's what I do. But at the same time, there's, when you do this 24/7, it takes a toll on you, man. And I've seen some of the people that they got old pretty quick doing this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what was kind of happening to me, and then all of a sudden I came back within 2 years of just consciously,
That's great,
making sure I went back to life, because you need to live. You need to, you don't want your life to pass you by. There are other things to experience, and it makes your work better too. It made my film work better, for sure. Just getting back and trying to get back in touch with these very positive energies that are available to us, in so many different ways. Everything from, silence, meditation, solitary, moments where you're just reading a book or just walking by yourself somewhere or just interacting with someone who has good energy, I mean, these are all important things I think we need to do. Just as people, I mean, because you're kind of building this soul. That's how I feel, like you're building a soul here, not in a religious sense, even just as an energetic sense.
Sure.
And so if you spend too much time plugged into all this artifice, you could really drain yourself. And I'm telling you, I mean, I feel like I'm 24 years old again, physically. It's weird.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it, and I'm definitely going to take your example and spend some more time with the kids, and now with the grandkids. Believe it or not, wow. I was just talking about that, and I was just talking about that in the chat, and they're like, Dave Cruz has grandkids. Yeah, I'm Papa Dave.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
and
man.
Again, yeah, do that.
It really is. It really is. It's a great experience. It's a new experience, and. Now I get to, kind of live through their eyes and their actions again. It's a wonderful thing, and me and Deb are really blessed, and we have wonderful children, and now we got wonderful grandchildren, and it's just an amazing experience, man. But
that's awesome, man.
Thank you. I appreciate everything, Chris, man. I can't believe the time has already flown by. Even at a late hour like this, once again, thanks so much for being on the show. I know it's late over there, and I'd love for you to come back, sometime for updates, of course. So please let our listeners know where they can find you and everything you do.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram or YouTube or with the title Garetano 7, my last name and the number 7. You can go to my website at montaukchronicles.com. If you're looking to check out my movie, you can order it on Amazon or from my website. And if you just want to rent it or buy the digital download, at vhx.com. And if you find me on Facebook or whatever, send me a message. I got a few coming in only because of the show right now, so it might take a little bit for me to get back to you. You can email me from my website, but I will get back to you, I promise.
Awesome, brother. Hey, Christopher, thanks again for being on the show one more time. Everybody give it up for Chris Garetano, and please check out the Dark Files. You're going to love it on History Channel. Amazing stuff. Chris, have a great night, man. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
All right, man.
Well, that wraps it up, everyone. Man, another wonderful show on Saturday night. And again, I can't thank Chris enough for being on the show. Amazing time. Well, remember, tomorrow, tune in to Elizabeth Anglin. She has Psychic Sundays on Spaced Out Sundays Cosmic Passport, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, spacedoutradio.com. You can also listen to me, Dave Cruz, as I host Beyond the Strange Radio, Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good night. And as always, stay spacey. Hasta.
When the clocks, they never stop, they barricade my face. When the clocks keep building up, they suffocate my brain. I built them to destroy myself. They're circling the prey. I push until I break. I feel them start to scrape. The core of all I am is chiseling away. And every speck of life is gonna rot away in time. We touch a mud or touch a stone, it's a grand design. Amazed of petrified hearts and I'm lost inside. We all self-destruct, love is to deny. And that is life. And the clocks, they never stop, they tap beneath my skin. When the clocks keep building up, they rip new holes again. You're here to turn me